Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Juggernaut, and this is Guns, Gore and Cannoli 2. And these will be my first impressions of this game. So, what is Guns, Gore and Cannoli? Well, it's the kind of game where in the first few seconds of gameplay you can clearly see exactly what it's about. And this one is a 2D side-scrolling shooter in which you play as a, I believe, Italian mobster, or crime-fighting variant of mobster. Yeah, it's not a very good description, but this character is a bit, how do I put it? I'm not exactly clear on where he is on the entire moral high ground or low ground, because he does tend to shoot a lot of innocent people, soldiers, especially considering this is put in World War II, so you get to play as this guy, who basically lives off exclusively cannoli, and shooting and killing zombies, Nazis, American soldiers, other mobsters, and a variety of other enemies that I have probably not yet encountered. So, needless to say, enemy variety pretty damn high. Weapon variety pretty damn high as well. So now we've sort of started... also, now that I've basically stated what the game is essentially about, is it any fun? I guess that's the most important thing. And is it repetitive? Does it get boring after a while? Well, yes and no, in chronological order of those questions. Yes, it is very fun, and the only game sort of similar to this that I played, that's sort of similar in both its style and in the art style, and honestly the sheer amount of fun I'm having with it was, I believe, a few years ago, a 2D brawler came out that was, I think it was called Shank, or something like that. It could have had like a subtitle to that title. Oh god, 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 get away from me. Oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god, get away from me. This is highly distracting. Alright, where was I? Yes, Shank, and it sort of half reminds me of this. Obviously Shank was very different, it was a brawler, this is not, this is more of a shoot 'em up, though you do have brawling mechanics, in that you do have some melee weapons, and you do have a kick ability, which, if you're going to pick this game up, please get in the habit of doing that, because it will save your life and make the game remarkably easier if you do get in the habit of kicking your enemies when they come into contact. I'm about to die, aren't I? Unless they both burn down with that. Yep, I'm pretty sure that just happened. Oh god. Right, we good? Looks like we're good. Is it difficult? Sort of. This is on normal difficulty, and there are close calls, as you can tell. But it's not impossibly difficult, unless you pick the impossible difficulty, which makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? For me, though, this is my first time playing, so if you want some insanely challenging gameplay, I don't know, because I need to finish the entire game and play it, you know, maybe 1 or 2 more times through, and then I could become really, really good at the damn thing and play on impossible difficulty and give you a proper review. But as far as first impressions go, this is on normal difficulty, and it's decently challenging. So, could be better, could be worse. I played on hard, and I died a bit too often for my taste. So, that's about it, as far as difficulty is concerned. Does it get repetitive? I mentioned the enemy variety, and it is very important in any action shooter game, and in any side-scrolling action shooter game especially, because they sort of... enemy variety is sort of put in the front and center attention of most of the gameplay, isn't it? I mean, this is true for most games, but in RPGs and strategy games and stuff like that, there are other things going. In shoot-'em-up games, you pretty much have... I mean, the only thing you do is shoot enemies, so there should be a variety of things for you to shoot at. And indeed, there is. This is only a few levels in, and I have encountered a huge variety of enemies, and none of them overstay their welcome. So, just as I started getting a little bit bored with the gangsters of whatever the starting city's name is, and it's not Thug City, this is Thug City, but the city that you start in, whatever its name is, I started to get a bit bored with them, and there is a large variety of those as well. we moved on to Thug City, and now I'm fighting American soldiers and zombies. Which you'll admit is a pretty damn big difference from mobsters, Italian mobsters armed with spanners and bar stools. I mean, look at this thing. Does it remind you of an Italian? Probably not. I mean, it doesn't change the fact that this was at one point an Italian, probably. But, hey. Doesn't change the fact. So, this is a game set in World War II, or rather during World War II. Now, you might think that, you know, you being Italian and this being World War II, you might have better things to do in whichever side of the war you want to participate on. Well, you do sort of participate in this war. Though as a sort of third faction, almost. Fourth, even, depending on how you look at history. You sort of participate as your own faction in that you will kill absolutely everything you come in contact with. The Chaos faction, if you will. So, no, this is not a World War II shooter, this is a... Well, I mean, I like to think I'm pretty good at history. I don't remember that thing being a part of World War II, if you catch my drift. So, no, it is set in World War II, though, and it's good. It's good. It makes it, in my modest opinion, better. Because were this set in the modern era, and I was using a Spas 12 or something instead of a World War II style trench gun, I think I would have had less fun with it. In that, I think the World War II weapons, aesthetic, style, and everything suits it a hell of a lot better now. No way, come on. Suits it a hell of a lot better than something else would, like a post-World War II era shooter. You also get a variety of weapons, and you can see from the weapon wheel just how big that variety is. What about the art style? I absolutely love it. It fits the game very well. It's just great. It's very pretty. I just like it. I just really, really like it. I have nothing nothing bad to say against it. Now you are getting a rocket to the face. There we go. Should have used that initially, probably. At any rate, we can now focus on the commentary a little bit more. And not really exhausting, but it's a game that requires you to pay attention, and doing that while commentating is, well, can be a little bit difficult. At any rate. So, talked about the art style. Really, really like it. Gorgeous. It works. Now I'm going to start nitpicking a little bit about the game, because honestly, I have no major criticisms of it. I honestly don't. It works for what it is. It's incredibly fun, and it comes at a time where we don't really have a lot of these types of shooters, so the market's not oversaturated. Like I said, it's been ages since I played a game of this type. I'm really enjoying it, and do I recommend it? Just gonna get this. Usually I say this at the end, but do I recommend it? Absolutely. If you enjoyed the first game, this is just more of the same. I have not played the first game, and don't worry, the game treats you as if you didn't. So there's a sort of recapitulation of what happened at the end of the first game, or what happened throughout the first game. So the game assumes you're in my shoes, basically, and have no idea what's going on. So good. It's good. It's really, really good. I am going to start nitpicking a little bit, though, because, I mean, first of all, it wouldn't be very sensible to make a first impressions video and not say something that I dislike about the game, as minor as it is compared to all the good stuff that exists here. So, first of all, wholeheartedly recommend it. Now, nitpicking. It's sometimes difficult to distinguish between the foreground and the background. Sometimes. You get used to it, and by the time you finish the game, you will clearly, you know, get a feel for it, obviously. But by then, obviously, it's going to be too late as well, isn't it? So, for a decent bit of time, it will be rather difficult to distinguish between the foreground and the background. See that wall right there that I just passed? That looked to me like it's in the front. It's in the foreground. It wasn't. It was in the background. Not a very great example, perhaps, but it's somewhat difficult to distinguish. And in a 2D game where it's all about movement, all about positioning yourself, all about using the terrain to avoid damage and dish out damage to enemies, I don't know. It's a not a very big issue because it's not something that occurs very often, and like I said, you do get a feel for it. But yeah, it is a bit of a problem at times, especially when it comes to bullets. Because as you can see, I'm standing on this. I can also drop. Now, sometimes it's not clear whether your bullets can go through this or not. In situations where you can drop from one ledge to the one down below, bullets can go through. Obviously, you don't know this all the time. So, my bullets can't go through this. Can they go through the railing in front of me? If there wasn't this railing here, I wouldn't know. So, in certain situations, it becomes rather difficult to distinguish between the two and where your bullets can go. Obviously, you have this laser indicator showing you this, but if you can't actually put your laser indicator over it, you don't know until you get there, and if you're playing on the harder difficulty levels, by the time you get there, it's going to be a little bit late. You sort of want to plan your stuff out and not do everything sort of by improvisation. At any rate, again, it doesn't happen all the time. It's relatively rare. Actually, here's a good example: poison barrels, right? They're not features in they're not actually stuff you can shoot at. Green barrels, the ones that explode, are. I didn't know that until now, so I did spend some ammunition shooting at the poison barrel. It's not a big deal, but you sort of continuously encounter it, almost as a result of the fact that there is a lot of enemy variety and a lot of variety in terms of areas that you visit as well. So, as much as that is an advantage, and it is a great advantage of the game, you also have issues with that, I suppose. At any rate, what else? Well, the game has a large variety of weapons, as I said. Problem is, picking and choosing those weapons is done either with a wheel, like so, or with, I'm assuming, the number keys as well on the keyboard if you're playing on a keyboard, or pressing the Y button on a controller. But Y button just cycles through them. It's very difficult to pick up a weapon you want for the given encounter if the encounter has started already. So I'm going to jump down here. I have no idea what's down there. It turns out it's a loading screen. But I have, for example, right now, I have no idea what's down there. How do I figure it out? I'd go down there. But if I go down there with the wrong weapon, by the time I pick out the one I want, I will have taken a shit ton of damage. This is a subjective thing, obviously, but I would prefer if time at least slowed down while this was active. Because while this is active, you can't fire, and you can't rotate your character to look to the left or to the right. So, slowing down time by, let's say, 50% while the wheel is active, to me would be a lot better than having it all play out in real time. Could you use it to abuse certain situations and give yourself extra time to think about what you're going to do? Sort of, but how many people are actually going to do that? How many people are going to go, oh, there's a load of zombies, quick, use this to gauge the situation. No, you're going to use this to pick out a weapon. And I'm like, there's a lot of them, alright, I'm going to use a bazooka, bang. Because the way things are right now, the best weapon to use in any given situation is the one you have right now, unless you know what's coming. Now, switching is not the most difficult thing in the world. It's done by a press of a button. It's very useful if you run out of ammo, but if I'm trying... If, say, I have the chainsaw, which I have a lot of ammo for it now, and I want to get to the bazooka. Where's the there's the bazooka. By that time, I would have been hit by something that needs to be killed with a bazooka. See what I'm getting at? So, basically, could be better, could be worse. And I do think it is subjective, but I do think the game would have been better off with a system that allows you to slow down time as you're picking up, or as you're switching weapons. At any rate, though, that's about it. And you can see some of the mobsters that I fought in the first few levels here. How's the game controlled? Very well. I'm playing this on a relatively powerful computer. Actually, the one in my other city is slightly more well equipped in terms of everything. Really, I think this one just has a little bit of a better processor on paper, but that one has more RAM, has a better graphics card and everything. On a high range-ish computer, haven't had a single stutter. And I've talked to other people that have played this game as well on lower end PCs. The game seems to perform rather well. So, I mean, you'd expect a side-scrolling shooter to perform rather well. It's not the most graphically intensive thing in the world, but you know, they can screw it up. This game does perform rather well. How does it control? How does it feel? Again, I'm playing this on an Xbox 360 controller, and I've played a little bit, like the first level I've played on PC, on mouse and keyboard. So, it works. You know, it works. I would, well, it works surprisingly well on mouse and keyboard for me. It's obviously a thing that's going to be subjective a lot of the time, and here we have Nazis. Alright. I think I killed a decent amount of Americans to justify shooting a few. Now, what on earth does that mean? It means that I'm trying to be politically correct and kill the equal amount of everything. Is that not an admirable task indeed? At any rate, it controls really well. It takes a little bit of getting used to, especially if you haven't played a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up like this. It's not really a shoot-'em-up, but a side-scrolling action shooter in a while, like I haven't. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but it works, and it's really bloody good. So, how on earth do we get ourselves on the other side of this? Through there. Right, drop. Would I recommend what would I recommend playing it on? Personally, games like these I prefer playing on a 360 controller, or an Xbox One controller for that, but it's basically the same thing. But it's entirely subjective. All I'm here to tell you is the game works on both peripherals pretty damn well. So yeah, there we go. All right, what about is it worth it? Now, is there enough content here to justify a purchase, or is there enough to keep you busy? Well, something I can't praise the game enough for, and I don't know if I said this already, this is my second take recording this, it has local multiplayer and online multiplayer. I think it has online multiplayer. I'm going to have to check that, but it does have local multiplayer, and for that alone, gives you a hell of a lot of replayability. So, it's awesome if you can get someone to be in the same room with you for a few hours and then to blast through this. It's absolutely amazing, amazingly fun experience, especially if you play on some of the higher difficulties. And yeah, it's great. It really is. How would I explain this? It really is. I can't recommend it enough, even though it might not seem like this fantastic Game of the Year 2018, right? And the reason is, it's not the world's greatest AAA title. What it is like a smaller game that you're going to sink a few hours in and have an absolute blast. And you're not going to have that with a lot of games, and we're sort of missing that nowadays, I feel like. Something to, I don't know, when you come back from work, or you have a few hours or a few minutes of extra time, you can sort of just pop this on and kill some Americans, British, zombies, Nazis, whatever you come across, really. And it's just awesome. It really is. So I can't recommend the game enough in that sense, that it's like a smaller title that's an absolute blast to play through. And if you're not very good at these lower difficulty levels, if you're really good at these and want a challenge, that exists as well. So there we go. I mean, there's gonna be. I knew this was gonna be a very quick and very short first impressions. There isn't a lot to talk about without me just procrastinating and dragging the video on needlessly. Basically, you've seen everything you need to see. And I think based off of that it's more than enough to give you a very good idea on whether you whether you think you're going to have any enjoyment out of this title or not. A few of the things I would like to see as DLC maybe, or as in future updates, is a cheats mode. And not something I can cheat in from I don't know, like cheat engine or create a trainer or a table for myself. No. I mean like dedicated game cheats. Infinite ammo, all enemies are tougher, or the entire level is made up of the same enemy. This is some basic stuff like that that probably could be done relatively easily and used to be almost tradition in older games of this. I do mean quite older games of this type. You would have a cheats mode that allows you to play the game with modifiers, basically more than cheats. So some of them will actually make the game tougher. But yeah, basically like modifiers is probably a better term for this. So modifiers for the game, I think, would be a relatively easy, though I'm not a game developer, but perhaps a relatively easy, or at least I'm assuming easier thing to put in than whole new levels or characters or something like that. So yeah, I would like to see that put in, and potentially maybe some new levels or challenge modes or something like that as DLC or in future updates. I'd like to see that as well. I think it would just make the game extra worthwhile and would give you more bang for your buck, to use a, I believe, rather fitting terminology considering what we're doing. Alright, let's see. Anything else? Well, honestly not really. I mean, that's about it. So, let me actually check, if there is. Yep, there is online. So, did I miss that? No, I was pretty sure there was, but I just wanted to make sure. Just give me a second to go back into the game. And you know what? Here we go. We're going to play as Santa Claus this time around. Because why the hell not? You weren't good this year. You failed in the Ardennes campaign. You failed to stop the Allies from invading Normandy. You get no presents this year, you get a shotgun to the face, says the German Santa. At any rate. Or the Italian Santa. I'm not sure, are these Italian troops? I mean, they look like Germans. I'm going to assume they're Germans working with the Italians, which is probably exactly what they are. At any rate, there we go. That's about it. So, I'm going to show you a little bit more about of the gameplay, and I'm going to shut up to let you listen to the soundtrack. But before I do, I'm going to talk about it. Probably my biggest complaint about the game, because everything else you sort of get used to. The foreground-background thing lasts for the first few levels, and then you get a pretty damn good idea of what's what, even though occasionally it does happen if you enter an entirely new area. You're not sure what's what, but you sort of get a feel for the game a bit later on as you play. And I guess, due to the art style, the entire foreground-background thing is a little bit inevitable, but the soundtrack, yes. Well, I don't dislike it, but I feel it's a little bit weak. Now, this is obviously going to be entirely subjective because it's music, but, should I talk over this? Probably. I'm gonna talk over this because if you don't want any spoilers, just basically look away. Essentially, there is subtitles as well if you want to read the entire thing, but essentially what's going on here is the soundtrack works really, really well in certain areas and in certain maps, and then you get a very quiet, generic sort of thing that doesn't really mean it isn't that great, and doesn't really work. So, considering this is the World War II era, you could get very creative with music from this age. You can also put actual songs, though I don't know how the copyrights for that work, but you can put actual songs from the era as the background, or remixes of them or something. And in certain areas the game does really well on the soundtrack, but then in certain areas it's just meh. And the music is really damn important for side-scrolling shooters, because other than you don't really get much in the way of dialogue. You know, there is the occasional cutscene, as we saw there, and the story does work rather well, but for the rest of the 90% or more of gameplay, you just get shooting noises, explosions, and bullets. Soundtrack is mandatory, and it needs to be really, really good. And there are plenty of games that have a fantastic soundtrack, but the gameplay is not on par. Personally, I think the soundtrack could have been better. Needless to say, this is one of those observations or criticisms of the game that there's going to be entirely subjective, and I have... Oh god, this is a boss fight. This is terrible. Needless to say, the entire argument here is going to be entirely subjective. So don't pay that much attention to it. I'm gonna shut up now and let you listen to probably one of the better pieces, considering we're fighting the boss. So here we go.
This battle, Mr. Vinnie, but we'll meet again.
Alright, there we go. So, as to avoid any further spoilers, I'm going to skip this and press escape. I thought it would be on a controller. Alright, at any rate, we're now in the Normandy landing. Yes. Did I mention how the game takes you a variety of places? Well, yeah, we're done now fighting with predominantly zombies in a tiny town somewhere in Italy. I'm assuming it's Italy. Is it just because it's Thug Town that you're assuming it's Italy? Sort of, okay? We're now going to fight Nazis on the Normandy landing, and yes, we are going to use an MG42. Is it an MG42? I think it's an MG42. We're going to use an MG42 against the Germans. Like I said, a variety of things. So I think that was a great example of just that. At any rate, we shoot at the Allies coming onto the beach and sort of do the Germans' job for them a little bit as well. I strive to achieve a balance. At any rate, that's about it. Get out there and fight, maggots. Alright, thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. This has been Guns, Gore and Cannoli. And have fun. Take care. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and if you like the game, check it out. There will be a link to the Steam page down in the description below. And that's about it. Until next time, have fun, take care, and bye-bye.